Hi, and welcome to another installment of the Presbyterian. Today I have the Reverend David Knox with me, and David was minister over in Lisburn, a Presbyterian church in Lisburn, and that was his last charge. He's been brave enough today to tell us about his experience of the care and love that he received through the grand leadership structures and sort of that great federal government in Belfast. So I want to encourage David today, and many people have been starting to hear about the Presbyterian, about our podcast, our channel, and they've asked me about taking part. But many more have find themselves far too traumatized, damaged, brutalized to be able to talk or speak. And sadly, you know what the experience of their care did to my health physically. But many people have suffered in so many different ways with their mental health and other things. So I really want to give a warm welcome to David today and encourage him in his honesty and just assure him that he has liberty and freedom here, and he's with people that care about him. So he's with his friends, and he's going to tell us about what happened to him. So I'll hand over. Thank you, David.
Okay, thanks very much, Barry. I retired from Harmony Hill Presbyterian Church as minister about 7 years ago now, nearly 7 years ago. And Harmony Hill's a large church, busy church. I enjoyed it. And it was a happy time for me. I mean, they're all ups and downs, not perfect, but it was a happy time. And everything was fine. And, I retired. Did a lot of preaching around the place. And then there was one day, I was in a particular council and I didn't get any notification about it. I thought, this is odd. Checked up and they're all sort of uncertain about what had happened. No clarity for me. Then it came about that my son, who's not very well mentally, had written to the Clerk of General Assembly, and they kicked it down to Presbytery. They kicked it back to the Clerk of General Assembly, and lo and behold, they said that he had made charges against me, accusations. Thankfully not of a sexual nature, but serious enough, I think. The charges boiled down to the fact that he said I had hit him in 1996, which I had. And I regret it. I shouldn't have done it, but there's no blood, no hospitalisation, no bruises. And then again, a few years later, when he came home high on some kind of drugs, my wife and I both hit him. So that was the charge, really. Now, I apologised. I asked for forgiveness. Did I get forgiveness? No. I was suspended for 5 years from all ministerial activities. I can't take a service, can't lead a Bible study, can't do anything. And I feel I'm still productive enough at 71 years old. But unfortunately, Barry, I have been sidelined. I have been treated, I call them Stasi. You go to this trial, it's basically a trial, but there's no representation, no witnesses allowed. My brother came with me and he was very helpful and supportive, but, and there's no appeal. So the unfortunate thing is that you hear this stuff and you don't believe it, and then you realize if you've gone to civil court, you've got a decent hearing with witnesses. And there would need to be, pros and cons put in the court case, but that didn't happen. My son accused me of other things, like grandchildren were afraid of me. We'd just been to London with grandchildren. He no longer sees any of his children. A judge quite recently said he had lied. I told the Clerk of Assembly, Trevor Gribben, that the fact they never replied to me. So I feel I've been treated very badly. I think I had a reasonable ministry. I made many mistakes, but there were many encouragements over the years. So I mean, basically, that's my initial story.
But David, who? So the General Assembly met, and the General Assembly barred you from ministerial duties.
Yes, it came to
I
the
never heard anything about this in the General
it
Assembly.
came to the what do you call it, private session? Came to the private session, and my name came up, and as a result, uh, their decision was final. I've now 3.5 years to wait till I'm exonerated. Well, I'll be alive or dead by that stage, I don't know. But it's been very traumatic for my wife, for my family. My son, sadly, has been able to make accusations which have never been verified ever. He did a recent Instagram piece for an hour and a quarter, which he criticised me, which I expected, but also my wife and my other son. Said terrible things about them. I didn't let my wife listen to it. So it's been very hurtful. I still love my son. I'd love to see him back with us, but he's moved away so far from the Christian faith. He's involved in shamanism, whatever that is. And so it's been a tragic situation for our family. Pray for him every day. Pray that he will know that we love him. Pray that he'll be reconciled to God and to us. But it has been very painful. He doesn't see anybody in the family at all, nobody. He's cut himself off completely, and as I say, cut himself off his 3 daughters. Been married twice, both marriages failed, and he now has a partner. So that's where he is at the moment. I don't know anything about him, sadly. He's occasionally in touch with my wife, but just very occasionally.
Now David, as I say to our listeners today, I really don't know David's story. I know he and his family have been so hurt by the way they've been treated. And one thing about our channel, the Presbyterian, is, and I told David as I met him this morning, uh, is we believe in liberty, freedom of speech, and you can come and share your story. But it would seem to me, David, that your your son who has mental health issues, etc. There's this personal letter, a personal family issue. That in and of itself, it was horrendous for you and your wife.
Mm-hmm.
But in what way did the church help you then? Because I'd expect the Christian
Mm-hmm.
church, with the gospel at its centre, to be about trying to help someone through something like that. David,
Well,
could you tell us how they helped you?
that's what I expected. I was naive. I thought if I tell the truth, everything will be fine, right? I thought be straight with them, be honest, which I was. And then we had a few meetings, 2 or 3 meetings, and got coffee before the meetings and Kit Kats and whatnot. I thought, yeah, this is all right. The last couple of meetings, there was no coffee. And it might be wee things like that that make you think, there's something going on here. And then when it came to the trial, the final thing, when they told me that they were suspending me for 5 years, I nearly fell on the floor. My estimation of a number of people went downhill very quickly. Some former moderators, in fact, a former moderator acted as judge. I couldn't believe it. And I sent him emails to tell him, so he never replies to me either. Now, this is a person that I would have respected greatly beforehand, but not now. I'm sorry. And there are other people, I don't want to name them, but people would be surprised at, who gave me no support whatsoever. I have a feeling that the decision was made long before we ever had the judgment. I suspect some of the things that were said, some of the things that were said to my wife, that they had decided a long time before that they were going to get me. Now, I am reasonably orthodox in my views, but there are a few things that I'm not that orthodox on. But I thought I was allowed liberty of conscience, light from any quarter, but clearly not. So I think that may have been part of one of the factors, or a few of the factors, in the decision against me. I wouldn't certainly be towing the party line and often be a critic of the church. The way they treated the Church of Scotland, kicked them out on that infamous day in 2018, which was a disgrace. also the fact, whatever your views are on gay Christians, there was never any proper debate about it. I mean, it just happened. From that point of view, I thought, this is very odd, the way you treat people. And the fact that the church, excuse me, on that occasion, did not want to debate a serious matter properly. They might have said it, discussed it before, never really did. And so no matter what your view is, you would certainly believe that there should be pros and cons, proper debate. There wasn't any.
Yes, it's very much become a mark of this overbearing federal power system. We see already that Mr. Gribben is making moves, basically to shut people down that disagree with these councils or generally, I suppose, hand-picked elites that form committees under him.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost as though if they could hire the thought police to examine your thoughts and then cut you off. And I didn't really catch where they did anything to help you, I must say, David. Which, I'm not sure. Like, it sort of seems, as I hear these stories again and again, and as I said, there are a lot of people who cannot find the courage to talk publicly. But there is no right of, like, the whole so-called process is a sham. The decision is made by a group that sort of sees themselves as like they're purifying the church. They're the church purifiers. They have an inquisition. They're not really interested in the person, David. And what they seem to want to do is just put all of a sudden you're a person of no consequence. And what it's doing to people is absolutely horrendous. Now, what sort of a president is set? So 5 years you're not allowed to go to a committee meeting, preach or anything. Like, what is that, David? What is that a made up new punishment? Does that happen? Like,
well, I asked the clerk of assembly if this had ever happened before, but of course he didn't answer me. I suspect it didn't, but I don't know for certain. I also did ask for help. I also asked that my son might get some help and support and counselling. Never offered any. I had then to go and find a counsellor myself, who's been very, very helpful indeed. And I go every couple of months to see her. And I would recommend that if anybody's in this position, they would go to counselling, because it is very helpful. I can recommend a name if anybody's interested. But, it's so helpful.
Yes.
And you can be totally honest with the counsellor. And it's a freeing thing. It's a liberating experience.
Okay.
Talk to the counsellor. Talk to your friends. But, what you do find out is who your friends really are. I mean, in my press rate, I've been in 25 years. Only one or two people maybe who inquired after me. That was it. So you're sort of wondering why these people say nothing. And if somebody's got to them, or did they never like me anyway? Or has somebody told them to keep stum? It's very puzzling. I mean, I was there 25 years. I knew all the ministers,
It's about fear.
Yeah.
One of the things that power out of control always brings to any institution is fear. And people think they'll take the path of least resistance. They keep their head down. Look, David, I sent numerous letters to even those that proclaim to be the social justice warriors within our church. They got put in drawers and forgotten about. And there's a real spirit of fear for people to speak. Let me be brutally honest, David. What happened to you, what happened to me, it's happened to countless others. People realize that can happen to them.
Yeah.
I wonder, as I hear your story, how useful it would be. And you're giving advice about getting a counsellor, etc. Sadly, your advice isn't go to the church. Sadly, it's the very opposite. But I wonder, should we go to the police? Because if you think about it, these people took an opportunity to destroy you based on a false accusation with no criminal undertone whatsoever. But because they know it's a personal nature, there's embarrassment. They can take away your dignity. They can do whatever they want with it. They abuse you, and I would often think right at the start, if I was the same as you, David, I was naive. I thought these people. I believed I was under the care and protection of the church. Is not what my constitution tells me. That's why I'm a member of a presbytery, because every baptized member of the church is that court exists to give care and protection to every. What a fool I was! But what we actually should consider doing is go straight to the police and get the police to record this, because they use it in a way that is completely barbaric. It is utterly horrendous. So, sadly, David, as you tell your story, and I don't mean to take away from your story, but I've heard so much of it before.
Yeah.
And this is what they're doing to people. And you're being shown no dignity, and the idea of their courts. They're complete kangaroo courts here.
Absolutely, yes.
They're kangaroo courts. But you're not really sure if there's any, like, is there such a thing as somebody somewhere can just say, oh, I'll have this, like, I'll just pull a figure out of the air. 5 years, let's say, you're not allowed to attend the committee meeting or preach or do something. Like, it all sounds so ropey. Like,
yeah.
It sounds so completely arbitrary.
Well, yeah, it does. Somebody get that? Because they don't tell me where they get this from. As you say, they pulled it out of the air. I mean, going to the police is an interesting thing, because I do think what they have done is criminal.
Of course, it's criminal.
It's and it'd be interesting. But I've talked to a couple of solicitors. I'm very reluctant to take PCI on for some reason. But there may be, and I think there's hope with a channel like this, and maybe going through the BBC and so on, because they're interested. I think that there's a problem, there's a dictatorship going on, a fundamentalist right-wing takeover, which has gone on for many years now. A lack of, when I joined PCI, it was a broad church. Now, whether you like that or not, it worked pretty well. Pretty well. But it's become tighter and tighter and tighter.
Yeah.
The ladies in our church, lady ministers, have found this as well. It's not easy. And there are few enough candidates for ministry, and you sort of wonder why. And then you maybe think, well, maybe word's got out that actually this ministry, you have a lot of things to negotiate in terms of difficulties, hardline views, and so on. And if you're not that, you're not welcome.
And they're very much driven by sort of the public and the eyes of men upon them. The way the Pharisees lived. Sort of, I'll give in public, pray in public, fast in public.
Yeah.
Because it's like a purification squad that seemed to operate. It reminds me maybe of it wasn't Christianity, but of like a moral Victorian romanticism back 150, 100 years ago. A girl gets pregnant or something, and she disappears in a boat. Her relatives don't see her for a year, and she comes back and says, well, I had a job in England.
Yeah.
And maybe the child aborted or given away or something. And we'll just, that's how they thought on dealing with people. Here's a slight problem. We can just completely dehumanize the person. Instead,
yeah. But what I find really in my own experience and talking to other people is an utter lack of compassion or empathy I go to an ordinary town church, very happy there, the minister's great, and I think that's true in most of the local churches, but not from the hierarchy. The lack of compassion astounds me, and I tell people, though some of them won't believe me. I was talking to a former moderator about it. He wouldn't believe me, and he's a friend of mine, and he said he'd ring me, but he hasn't. So, there's a lot of stuff. People are getting at people. People are being warned off.
Oh, yes.
People are being threatened. People are being told, if you do
Yeah.
this, you lose that. It's a shocking situation. Very far from the Christianity I understand, speaking the truth in love. It doesn't happen.
Yes.
And how they get away with it and what's going on in Church House and Union College and all these places, I have no idea anymore.
And finally, David, I did was want to ask you, and we'll end with this. Actually, you were the minister to the Trimble family,
Yeah,
our late, it was our first minister of the Ulster Unionist Party, Lord Trimble. Did the control freaks actually step in and interfere in that relationship and embarrass you?
Well, they didn't embarrass me, but something happened because, as the minister, I've known David for well over nearly 30 years. And, intimately involved in his family, weddings, baptisms, and so on. And so knew him very well. And he died. And, the natural expectation of everybody was that I would do the funeral. But because of my ban suspension, I wasn't allowed to do the funeral. But, at the same time, the family was very gracious to me and invited me. It was a very nice lunch afterwards. I was invited to that and treated very well by them. But, by the church, not. My service was not recognised. I've been a minister for, nearly, whatever it is, 50 years. Well, less than 50 years, 45 years. And, it was in Downpatrick, Harmony Hill, etc. Enjoyed it, but none of that was ever recognised. None of that service was ever sort of made a kind of, well, he did quite well here. He's not all bad.
Yeah.
So I've been made to feel that I misbehaved. I've been such a sinner.
What's it for? I have so many questions.
Yeah.
It's so if you get five, pull a figure out of the sum for, well, like I presume the fundamentalists would nearly say that disciplining your children should nearly be part of, if your children were coming home on drugs and needed discipline, there would probably be a big fundamentalist core, David, that would shake your hand and say a good cuff is exactly what they need. But as I said, they don't really have any values or principles in that way. That they're just pragmatists.
There's no consistency.
No, there is no, like the same people have been giving me a lecture about their strong reform complementarianism and their views of women. Now, they're completely misogynistic. So with me, they would have sort of said things like, or they would tell people to try and bolster themselves up. Oh, we heard he had lunch with a woman. Now, they don't even hear how misogynistic and disgusting they are, because they're actually sort of trying to sow seeds as though, why else would you have lunch with a woman? Like women are just meat. That's why else would you have it? But actually, the same people will be lecturing me about the complementarianism, and 3 weeks later they will be down at the ordination of a woman in the same presbytery laying hands on her, and I'm like, oh, like I can't respect these people.
No.
So, but David, we're going to end it there, and I know you've been struggling yourself with your health lately, and so take some extra effort, and thanks for coming over, and thank you, audience, for joining us here this morning.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Bye bye.
Listen, thanks, Barry. God bless you. Thank you.